Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine. Your host, Avi Meyer, and the greatest cameraman of all, Sonny Hersh.
Thank you, Marty. Although it's pretty obvious I didn't get there today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hersh and myself. Check us out on the World Wide Web at ntnm.org. Sonny Hersh, of course, our entire technical crew does the website, as well as CAPS24.org. As chairman of the District Advisory Committee, Sonny's got all the listings for all the CAPS meetings for Rogers Park and West Rogers Park. And, of course, just a scant few days after these shows appear on the air, you can watch this on YouTube by going to sh.org. And at this point, well over 15,000 of you, if not more, have watched shows. Don't you have anything better to do? At this point, it is full-blown election season. Full-blown election season, and it is always good at this point to touch base with the leading election lawyer in the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the free world, maybe even the communist world. I don't know.
They don't have elections there.
No, they don't. Anyway, Jim Nally. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me on again, Abby.
First of all, thank you, and we hope you'll enlighten us. And don't forget, too, we'll probably have a live election show. I'll tell you the date later that we're planning for.
And we'll have to move it up. We'll be doing it, actually, probably Super Bowl Sunday. Because Super Bowl Sunday is the Sunday before the election, so maybe a week earlier.
A week earlier, as a matter of fact. That's what we're planning on right now, and I hate to let my people who might also file for time know off the air. Oh, by the way, Dick Devine has threatened to join us.
Well, just bring him on. I think it would be great. It would round us out very well.
And I think we'll have a very interesting and impressive list of candidates. Some of the people, I'm getting requests from all kinds of people. It turns out that we have more mutual friends than I realize. Mike Fouché calls me to get Alderman Ed Smith on. I don't know if he's on next week or was on the week before, depending on when I decide to put these shows on the air. And, of course, he's a client of yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've represented Alderman Smith for many years.
Very nice guy. And as a matter of fact, and our second guest today, by the way, is Nan Kapoor from the India American News. And they were actually talking in Indian together. Smith was in the Peace Corps, and he's picked up a bit.
Well, you know what? He's a very interesting guy. He's got a lot of facets.
He really does. There's no question about it. So very interesting, and I hope you guys, if you haven't watched it, go to sh.org. Go to ntnm.org, and you'll be able to catch all this stuff.
Well, I am actually very impressed with the number of people catching it on the web now. It's really taken off, and when I check some of the episodes that I watch on the web, I look at the number of hits, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of people out there, and they're all coming together here to watch us. So
yeah, it's very cool. I like that. So there's a lot of stuff. Tell me. You're the expert here.
Well, as we're filming this, we're right in the heat of the objection period. Everybody's filed their petitions now. That was over November the 5th, and then the period for objections is running this week. A bunch of them were due yesterday, and then the only ward committeemen are due in a couple more days. So we don't really have a lot of information on any objections there. Although ward committeemen was very interesting. There are a number, as we know, for instance, in the 50th ward of contested races. But the vast majority, the committeemen are running unopposed. So it's going to be a situation where there are races. I think they're going to be very hotly contested races. But there's going to be a whole bunch of wards where there isn't a race at all, and the committeeman is just going to go in and vote for himself or herself, and they're elected. So.
Yeah, one of the things, as a matter of fact, that I think Tom Dart's the one that told me this, or maybe you did. But I was very surprised. Oh, Bob Fioretti. That Bobby Hersh decided not even to run against him.
Yeah, as you know, Bob Fioretti was elected alderman of the 2nd Ward.
And of course, he's somebody you've been friendly with for quite a long time.
Oh yeah, we practiced law for a number of years, and we go back. And Bob was elected in the runoff election as alderman, and he filed for committeeman of the 2nd Ward, and Congressman Rush has been the committeeman there for a number of years, and he didn't file. So Bob is another one who'll be running unopposed for committeeman. A lot of the aldermen, a lot of the independent aldermen or the non-incumbent aldermen who ran and won are now, it happens in most election cycles, they're kind of consolidating then their wards, and most of the time if a non-incumbent wins the alderman's seat, they run for the committeeman's seat then, which timing-wise is always within about 9 or 10 months of the aldermanic election. So they have a lot of momentum going. Their name is out there. I'm trying to think of another client of mine, Pat Dowell, who was elected in the 3rd Ward. She's running for committeeman there. Now, she is an opponent, but she certainly has a lot of momentum going because of her.
Yeah, winning an aldermanic election definitely is some momentum.
So you see in a lot of these wards where the person who was elected alderman, newly elected the last time around, are now running for committeeman, and a good number of those people are running unopposed for that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You'd think there'd be more opposition, but I guess
I think they probably
we have it in 50 here. Of
course. Well, yeah, and there's exceptions to every rule,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, I think the aldermanic races in Chicago are so hard fought, and everybody's throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, into them, that whoever wins that has pretty much exhausted the opposition, and the opposition really at that point says, look, we gave it our best shot here in the aldermanic, and we came up short. We don't have the resources or the interest, or we're just too darn tired from fighting so hard in the aldermanic race, and we're just going to walk away on the committeeman. And committeeman's a party office. It's not a public office.
And a non-paying job.
A non-paying job. So, there's probably a lot of people say, well, yeah, why would people fight so hard over a job that doesn't pay anything to begin with? And certainly, in the past 20 or 30 years, the importance of that office has kind of diminished. It used to be much more important in terms of, even though it was a party office, the effect it had on government, which, isn't the case
It was
any
huge
longer.
because you had jobs, you had patronage.
Right.
And the Shackman things really messed that up.
Yeah, that's all gone now. So, although I think you're seeing the party under Joe Barrios has been revived. The party had a very successful fundraiser in August. It was the first big fundraiser.
Now tell us who Barrios is.
Joe Barrios is the commissioner of the Board of Review for the 2nd District, who's also running for re-election this time around. And he was elected when Tom Lyons passed away to take over as chair of the Cook County Democratic Party. And he's really made it a project of his and done a lot to reinvigorate it. He as I said, he hosted a large dinner, which they used to have on a regular basis, but it kind of fallen by the wayside, down at the Hilton this past August, and they had something like 1,700 people, which
Wow.
was just enormous. So he's done a lot to reinvigorate the party. He's opened up the slating process a lot more. I think you can talk to a lot of committeemen now who maybe felt they were on the margins or weren't part of the process or wanted to be but felt they couldn't be. And now there's much more of a feeling that, hey, I can be on the committee, I can have my say-so, I can help evaluate the candidates who present their credentials, that kind of thing. So I think the party's been reinvigorated due to Joe's efforts, and I think you're going to see after this cycle, we are going to probably have some new blood in taking over some of these committeeman spots. It's going to be real interesting to watch to see if the party continues this ascent and with some of the new people there who might bring some more energy and ideas to it.
There were two things that actually very much surprised me about the process of the slating this year. In particular, one is that they did not endorse candidates in certain roles, such as state's attorney.
State's attorney was the big one on that. Yeah. There had been, a slating session, and the slating subcommittee had evaluated candidates, and everybody who wanted to appeared and presented credentials, but there was no candidate who got a majority. So the decision was made, although they had slated for a lot of the other offices, the decision was made that since in the subcommittee no candidate had commanded a majority of the vote.
Or even close.
Right. They just said, you know what? We're just going to open it up. Every committeeman basically is free to go and do what they want to do in terms of backing people.
Psst, I like Larry Suffern, okay? So yeah, that was interesting to me because that's a big time job.
Yeah, and it was an interesting way, but I think it shows. I think it shows again. Maybe the way Joe Barrios is approaching this is that if you're not going to have a firm commitment of the party, why create an issue? I suppose they could have had multiple ballots and been there till midnight and ended up endorsing someone, but in reality, how strong would that support be?
Yeah, I think that's smart. And, well, not only that, but they also have a new rule about, like if the party endorses, you don't go against us?
Well, there were new bylaws drafted. I was invited to, help out with that, and I did. And there's a new provision now in the bylaws that basically says that no committee can actively oppose a slated candidate. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to be jumping up with joy for every candidate that's been slated, because some committeemen aren't. But the idea is that unlike in the past where if there was a slating session, people got slated, if a committeeman didn't like the slated candidate, they would just go out and support whoever they were going to support anyhow. There's a rule now on the books that says if you do that, you can be sanctioned. Now, you can't take a committeeman's vote away. They're elected by the people, so they have every right to vote at the central committee. But things like being assigned to committees and participating in the candidate evaluation, those are things that the party as a whole can say, well, you know, if you're not a team player, we don't necessarily have to let you do this then. And, you know, it has had an effect because particularly I was talking to a number of the people who are running countywide for judges, you know, circuit court judges, and you need about 2,700 good signatures to get on the ballot this cycle. And a number of them told me, gee, I thought committees, you know, this committeeman told me beforehand that they'd help me get signatures, and, you know, after the slating, I went to them and said, you know, okay, I'm here with my petitions, and a fair number of them did say, you know, that subsequent to this rule being adopted, committeemen said, gee, you know, I'd like to help you, but, you know, there's a rule now that says I can't. So it's interesting the way some of the dynamics, a lot of people still did file for the Cook County-wide judicial vacancies, but you saw a lot more people going into the sub-circuit races, and there are far more candidates. I would say probably double the number of candidates running in the various sub-circuits as there are county-wide. And I think part of that is because of the signature requirement, because in the sub-circuit you only need 500 signatures.
Yeah, that's more doable. 2,700 is a very serious amount, and then you need much, as you know, you probably counsel your clients to get triple that.
Yeah, you know, my word of advice to everybody is whatever the minimum is, multiply it by 3 and come in with that. And you know, people don't always hit that, but if they're trying for that, most of the time they can get at least twice what the minimum is, and they're not completely home free because my experience is 10 to 20% of signatures will be bad, even if you're out there trying just to get legitimate signatures. You ask somebody, are you a registered voter? Oh, yeah, and they're not. Or, you know, they were registered at 3 addresses ago and they've since moved. And a lot of people think, well, if I move, you know, my voter registration just follows me. Well, it doesn't. Every time you move, you have to re-register at your new residence. And, you know, just things like that that occur. So even if you're working diligently to make sure you have enough legitimate signatures, 10 to 20% would be bad for some reason.
Now, one question I have, I'm just curious about. Let's say that let's say an office needs like 500 signatures. Let's say somebody files 482. Go ahead. Go.
Well, the interesting thing is this. The election boards do not do a fine-tooth comb review of people's filings, so they generally do not count the number of signatures. You know, if for instance, you leave out a statement of candidacy or an economic interest receipt or something that's required, they generally don't, sometimes on those things, because they're just looking for one document, they'll say, well, this person's not eligible because they didn't file it. But as a rule, the presumption is that if you file, unless somebody objects to your signatures or your candidacy, you're going to be on the ballot. So there are plenty of people over the years who have filed with under the minimum number of signatures, or they filed with signatures if they had been challenged, they clearly would have been knocked off. But the law basically is the signatures are presumptively valid, nomination papers are presumptively valid, and unless somebody files an objection saying, here's why it isn't valid,
yeah,
people will get on the ballot. And there's lots of people over the years who've gotten on the ballot who, if a challenge had been filed through an objection, would not have made it if somebody had pointed out even obvious deficiencies like, you know, you're not even on 200 signatures, you know, you're 200 signatures below what the minimum would be. I'm actually handling, it's kind of interesting, the Green Party is now an established political party in Illinois as a result of the governor's election in 2006. Because by statute, a party becomes established if the candidate gets 5% or more of the vote. And if you remember with Blagojevich and Topinka, there was a Green Party candidate on the ballot, and he got something like 10 or 12% of the vote. So the Green Party now has joined the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as being a major established political party in Illinois, which means they enjoy the benefits. When you run as an independent or as a non-major party, the signature requirements are much greater to get candidates onto the ballot. So the Green Party now is enjoying the same rules that, you know, basically have been drafted by the Democrats and Republicans for their benefit over the years, to be able to run as an established party. And it just makes it a lot easier for people to run. So you're going to see on this ballot a lot of Green Party people running in the primary. You can actually go and ask for a Green Party primary ballot this time.
Yeah, I actually sent you I get the press releases to Jewish Chicago, which of course will have another free election issue this year, which we urge, well, it's not going to be out yet, but we'll urge you to pick it up when it's closer to coming out. And so they sent me a press release, and they're asking for somebody to get knocked off the ballot because the guy isn't really with the party or something?
Here's the problem that you have. If you are a party like the Green Party, and even though you're established statewide, there may be pockets of the state where you have a fair number, of people who are supporters and really want to get involved with you as a party. Then there's going to be areas where you don't really have anybody, and somebody will just say, "Hey, I'll run as a Green Party guy." The article you sent me was a guy that, my understanding is some kind of neo-Nazi.
Ooh.
And has tried to run he's tried to run for office in the past and been knocked off for other reasons, running as a Republican or a Democrat or something like that. But my understanding is this guy's now saw this opportunity with the Green Party. I think he was out in Berwyn, where I don't think there's a big contingent of Green Party supporters.
Actually, there used to be a very active membership in the Nazi Party. By very active, I mean if it's more than one, it's too many. Well, in that area.
And this probably the last guy out there, if we know anything.
Yeah, people don't realize that the real Nazi Party isn't like some of the stuff you see on TV. A bunch of very quiet people who've got some money.
Yeah, but this guy is just kind of a very lunatic fringe type of a guy, and I think the Green Party is obviously trying to say, look, we are a legitimate political party, and having a guy like this running in their primary doesn't support that position. So I'm sure they want to say, we don't need lunatics like this running under our banner. So
do they have any standing to get the guy off the ballot?
Well,
if the guy screwed up, or
I believe there was an objection filed. I'll have to check, but I believe there was an objection filed. My guess is he probably screwed up because people like that don't know what they're doing or talking about to begin with. So that wouldn't surprise me.
One of the things I agree with you is if a person doesn't know enough to follow the rules, what kind of elected official is he going to be?
Right. I mean, that's why often when these objections take place and people say, well, everybody should just be on the ballot, let the people decide. But, there's good reasons that these rules are in place to say, look, there are certain minimal things you need to do. I mean, for instance, running for judge, you need 2,600 good signatures to run in a county where there's, 5 million people. It's not that onerous. And, you should be able to say, if you are that qualified, you should be able to convince, 5,000 people that, look, I'm qualified for this position. Can you sign the petition for me? And you should have enough people who are committed to you to say, yeah, I'd really like to see this person in office because I think they'd be good, that they'll go out and help you get signatures. To circulate, all you have to be is a U.S. citizen over 18. So you could call up your cousins in California and say, hey, come in for a weekend and help me get signatures.
Don't you need a lawyer to be a judge?
Yeah, for that you do. But as far as circulating, you don't even have to be a registered voter anywhere, So there are requirements, but in the overall situation here, don't you want to show the people of a modicum of support in the community? So lunatics can't just get their name on the ballot by filling out a one-page form and saying, I'm running now.
No, that would be a very nice thing, and obviously now that you've explained who that person is, I would very much like to see them tossed off the ballot.
Yeah, well, I think the process will work, and I'm sure knowing where they're coming from and their other ideas, they're probably totally off the wall in running for this. I'm handling a challenge in one of the Green parties where the person has filed, and they didn't file the minimum number.
Yeah.
They just figured they'd file, if nobody objects to me, I'm on the ballot, and they'd be correct, except somebody caught it and said, we don't want this person running, where they couldn't even get 600 signatures.
Have you ever seen a case where somebody like that actually wound up winning the election?
I haven't seen anybody win. With that, because again, it kind of says, if you don't have enough people around you who think you're going to be good in that office to go out and help you get the mandatory number of signatures, what kind of a campaign are you going to be able to run? You're not going to have people who also then want to say, yeah, I'll go out and pass out brochures for you, or I'll go out and make sure, we have signs up in people's windows. So, generally, while they pull the trick off of getting on the ballot, the very fact that they couldn't get enough friends and family to say, yeah, we want to help you get on the ballot, generally they get a very small percentage of the vote. But what they can do is influence the outcome of the election, because if this person gets on the ballot and is able to get 5%, and you've got a very evenly matched race between the two major candidates, that 5% could spell the difference between who wins and who loses.
No, that's for sure. And, you don't even need that many signatures, like you said. If you just need 26 or 2,700 out of 5 million, and then you get 5,000 to do it. That's not so rough.
And people had since August to circulate. So, you know, one advantage of moving the primary up to February, which is rotten weather, is that it moved the circulating period up, which used to start in like to mid to late September, into August. And what a great time if you want to go out and get signatures from people, because there's block parties going on and festivals and people out in the parks walking around. The weather's nice. It really makes people accessible, so that if you wanted to get out there and get signatures, August, September, you know, this year actually into October, the way the weather was, you had tremendous weather that it would make it pretty easy to get out there and meet people and ask for signatures.
No, it would have been very, very easy, no question about it. Of the people that file, and we're sort of running out of time here, but of the people that filed, as a general rule, what kind of is there a specific percentage that usually get knocked off, or?
Overall, in some races you'll get no challenges. In some races, everybody. The Water Reclamation District, there's 11 people running. Every one of them has an objection filed against them.
Interesting. And in your professional opinion, I'm not going to hold you to this, how many do you think are going to get knocked off?
2 or 3.
Okay, interesting.
Maybe 4.
11. I didn't check the final filing. 11's a lot.
Yeah. And now I haven't seen these objections, so I don't know how good they are in terms of, you know, anybody can file an objection by signing a piece of paper, and they can object to say that you should have filed your petitions on blue paper, so therefore you should be thrown off the ballot. Well, you know, that's frivolous, that's ridiculous, and, you know, nobody's going to get knocked off for something like that. But, you know, as a general rule, you know, in a race like that, if you have 10 or 11 people, if there's some legitimate objections filed, you're going to see 2 or 3 off.
At this point, we're really out of time. So I want to thank very much my guest, Jim Nally. People want to contact you with election questions, they call?
312-422-5560.
312-422-5560. Thanks to my entire technical crew, Sonny Hersh. Thanks for joining us, everybody. ntnm.org, communitypolicingcaps24.org. I'm your host, Avi Meyers. Bye-bye.